We work to produce real world outcomes for them and a really high caliber quality client experience, right? In order to do that, we as leaders behind the scenes need to make sure that we're giving our team members a high caliber, world-class experience and a team and environment that empowers that success.
This is Ira Feuerstein with the Built Different podcast, where we speak to founders and C-level leaders from amazing companies all over the world, and we want to hear their story. So today, I'm excited to have a really good friend of mine, a guy I've known for a long, long time, Earl Foote here. He's here from Nexus IT Consulting. Earl is the CEO. Earl, welcome to the show. The beard is looking good like always.
Thank you, man. Good to see you. My friend, I'm excited to do this podcast with you, and thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, good to see you too. And I say, let's just go. Let's get into it. So let's start with the basics. I think everyone wants to get a good frame for an episode. And the frame here is, I'd like to hear the elevator pitch of what Nexus IT Consulting does.
Yeah, very good. In a slogan, we say Nexus IT is IT managed, cybersecurity solved, which means to us, and to the market, how we show up for our clients. We are a managed IT and managed cybersecurity services provider. So we provide outsourced IT solutions and support along with outsourced cyber and compliance services to predominantly upper SMB and lower mid-market businesses in regulated industries like healthcare, finance, construction development, manufacturing, professional services, all in regulated industry, basically.
Makes sense. So when you say upper SMB, lower mid-market, let's hone in a little bit more on that.
Yeah, very good. I think our average, client has 250 to 300 employees. Of course, we have some that are down in the, call it 10 to 12, maybe 15 employees. And then we have a few that are, 2,500 or so employees. We have some fairly prominent brands that we service with, I think is a great attestation to the team and their commitment, their dedication, or how they show up every day. Some national brands, some global brands, actually, that we service. Potentially, we don't service the entire organization, but different departments or sub entities of those organizations we service. So, of course, we're under an NDA with all of our clients, so we don't discuss who they are.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So do me a favor, walk me through your role being the CEO and how does it fit into the big picture at your company?
Yeah, very good. So, and this is a role, Ira, now 27 years, deep into having founded this organization and led it, most of the history of this organization from that lead chair, right? For me, it's been a role of consistently developing my understanding of the role and my capabilities and how I show up, in this role. So what the role is today, and where I predominantly focus my time and energy is in vision, culture, strategy, mission, our M&A practice, and leading leaders, coaching leaders, right? So I have an executive team, and we've built a culture of career and personal development and coaching here at the organizations, on a weekly basis. In fact, when we finish up here, this afternoon, I'll spend the rest of my day Monday, in my one-on-ones with all of our executives, going over progress, performance, their plans, and going over any obstacles that they're having and helping them remove those obstacles. And then, coaching them on where we need to go next level as an organization. So that's predominantly what my role is all about today. It's something I really enjoy, honestly. I really enjoy this seat. Call it from the crow's nest, being the guy who regularly zooms out and takes that 30,000 foot view of the organization, of the industry, of the market, and continuing to understand deeply what our clients need, what our people need, and how we evolve as an organization to always add value to those relationships, right?
Yes, 100%. Something you said piqued my curiosity, and I think this would be a good topic to talk about. It wasn't in my show notes, but I want to go there. Let's talk a little bit about how do you build a great culture in a business? Because I think for budding entrepreneurs, budding business people who want to build a business, I think this is the foundation of everything, frankly. Yeah. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I do believe that this is, culture itself is potentially one of the hardest parts of business to intentionally build. At the same time, it can be one of the most game-changing, right? And I do believe you either have culture by design or you have culture by default, right? And more often than not, if you haven't designed and intentionally modeled that culture and you aren't doing specific things to create that culture, then you're building a culture by default. And in most cases, that culture by default is not a very constructive culture, right? It's not something that's really empowering and enabling the success of your people and of your clientele. So, for us, that starts at really defining what we want the culture to look like. It's tied deeply to our mission to elevate IT. So we're here as an organization, a managed service provider, as an organization to provide our team members, IT professionals, cyber professionals, and those who support them from the back end of the business with an environment where they can do the best work of their career, right? An environment that gives them great opportunity for growth, for learning, for increasing capabilities and knowledge, and a place where they can do work that they feel aligned with, that they feel that they have purpose and are doing meaningful work that's making a real impact for our clients. That all being said, it's also important to understand and know fundamentally, like when you really study the neuroscience, the behavioral science behind culture, what it comes down to is culture is the top level leadership team behavior at scale throughout the organization. What that means is that the level of function or dysfunction that exists in a senior leadership team will exist throughout the entire organization. And so when you elect to take a role in one of these senior leadership chairs, in my opinion, are electing to take stewardship for how you personally model the culture and how you help others embody and live it throughout the organization. So it means you have to hold yourself to a very high bar, a high bar in terms of your behavior, how you lead, how you empower people, how you show up for your people and your clients, how you lead through change, through crisis, through challenge, right? And how you inspire people. The other thing that the other way I like to think about culture, Ira, is, you hear a lot of business leaders out there say culture is what you tolerate. And to an extent, that's accurate, but that is in my opinion, a very punitive sort of way to think about culture. And in fact, if you strictly think about culture as what you tolerate, you are leading from fear, right? And fear will never get the best work out of anybody. If you're leading people from fear and forcing them and pushing them and controlling them and manipulating them, and steering them by making them perform to specific metrics. And I'm not saying that metrics shouldn't exist. They absolutely should. What I'm saying is that when people react from fear, they never step into a seat of empowerment. They never step into a place, what I would call a zone of genius, where they can really be creative. They can be innovative. They can think about the business. They can think about how they're showing up for clients and their teammates, and they can think about how they can refine and do that better. If you're leading from fear, people are strictly just going to do, the bare minimum that they have to do to get by in the role. And they're really not going to learn and grow as people. So the way I think about it is culture is the space between what you tolerate and what you motivate, inspire, and celebrate, right? And so we as an organization tend towards the upper end of that spectrum, right? We want to lead from a positive place, an empowering place, motivation, inspiration, celebration. Of course, as leaders, it is our job to also make sure that the team is aligned, that we have the right people in the right seats doing the right work. And so it's also why we have a coaching culture around here. The culture isn't a coaching culture, just to coach people up in their performance. It's a coaching culture to help people learn and grow as individuals and to help them grow, as professionals. And granted, of course, when necessary, transparent, candid, leadership and being very clear about expectations of what it means to be a best in class business and how you show up for your clients, right? And how you show up for your team. It is leadership's job to make sure that everybody in the organization knows, with clarity what that means to all of us, right? And what our standard of expectation of behavior and performance is around the organization. The other way I think about this, Ira, is, you think about a championship, basketball team or football team, the Super Bowl, when you build a championship team, every member of that team is expected to be accountable for their role, right? Expected to show up and to deliver, on what they're being paid to do, right? We think about it in the same light. We try to build a culture around here of, we call it as one of our core values, absolute ownership. we show up for our clients and we work to produce real world outcomes for them and a high caliber quality client experience, right? In order to do that, we as leaders behind the scenes need to make sure that we're giving our team members a high caliber, world class experience and a team and an environment that empowers that success. And by giving them a team, I'm saying, you don't have energetic drags on the team, right? Because energetic drags pull everybody down. So, the expectation that everybody is here to perform a very important role and play an important, meaningful part of building the organization and building the way that we deliver services means that we are very mindful about right people, right seats, right work, right? With the right
Yeah.
commitment and absolute ownership in that, in their.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You know what I love that I didn't hear? I love that I didn't hear. Yeah, we do pizza parties.
Mm,
Because seriously, I think a lot of people think that, hey, if I just feed my people and give them snacks and stuff, that builds a culture. But you being very mindful, obviously have a much broader picture. And I love that. So let's just jump into some industry trends right now. The world is changing very quickly around us. And
very quickly.
what major shifts are you seeing in your industry right now?
Yeah, in managed services, particularly in the target segment of clients that we service, right? Over the past couple of quarters, and I'm gonna go there and talk about AI, right? Because it is a prevalent factor, and we are beginning to see that this target segment of clients that we work with, our ICP, right? Over the past couple of quarters, they're gaining real interest in wanting to understand how AI can really enhance their business, right? And help them be more effective, more productive, how it can streamline or automate operations and all that kind of stuff. So it's been interesting because over the last few years, this target segment of ICP that we service, most of them have kind of been waiting on the sidelines as we've been asking them about AI and that kind of stuff. Suddenly, over the last couple of quarters, everybody's gaining significant interest and wants to move fairly quickly, on formulating real AI strategy and then rolling out real innovation within their organizations. Right. Beyond that, I think that we're noticing the client relationships are evolving to a deeper level. Clients want to make sure that they have true value add partners in their organization, that they don't just have, an average subpar help desk, which candidly and frankly, a lot of managed service providers out there, that's really what they are, right? Is an average help desk. We aren't, we don't focus on that. We focus on, where is our client heading? Where do they want to, be in 3 to 5 years? How do we leverage technology to help empower their business plan and to make them more effective as an organization? So how do we add more value, to this organization, their ability to be able to execute on their business plan, right? That for us means, building reliable, scalable systems, right? That they know they can count on. Beyond that, I told you our mission is to elevate IT, right? To elevate the experience for our clients, to elevate the experience for our people and ultimately for the organization shareholders and our community at large, right? That being said, as we look at our clients and the market and where things are heading, we're continually assessing how we continue to innovate, our products, our services, how we innovate within our team and gain greater capabilities, capacity to be able to have real impact, in those accounts. And I believe that this is going to be really the future of managed services and managed security services. That's the other piece here is we know that, because of threats, data governance, vendor management, upline, partners and all that kind of stuff, cyber and compliance are evolving at a pace that we've never seen before. And even a lot of smaller organizations that have kind of made that a lower priority today are understanding, or being compelled to understand that this is a real world business consideration and that it has to be given real attention and real budget. So those are kind of the primary sort of things that I'm seeing, shifting in the market, and driving, the market and behavior. Beyond that, I talked about, kind of our perspective around culture and leadership. And Ira, I do see a global shift happening in the workforce. I see a workforce that no longer wants to execute misaligned work with misaligned leaders, right? They want an organization that has a real mission, that has real purpose and shows up with shows up with meaning and has real impact, right? For them and the clients that they serve. They want to align and be mission forward, values forward, a purpose driven type of organization and career. And they want leaders who can lead them, in that right. So what I'm saying is that the need to evolve and develop continually as a leader, to develop in intention and mindfulness, in our abilities to navigate and be emotionally regulated through these shifts, that are happening in the industry, are more paramount than they have ever been. And I think that leaders, just candidly, I think the leaders that are turning a blind eye to this global shift that's happening are leaders who will find themselves struggling in their career or out of a leadership position in the not too distant future.
100%. That kind of brings me into like what's working really well for you guys right now for Nexus.
Yeah, very good. There's quite a few things, Ira. First and foremost, again, being very attentive to where the market's going and the evolving needs of our clients, right? And then working very intentionally within our organization to evolve, our people, our capabilities, our services, our products to meet those evolving needs of our clients. That's working well. We've got, really great leadership team. We have a really great, you know, team that is executing on a day-to-day basis in the front lines that, again, they want to show up for the client and they want to be led to how they do that in a more compelling manner. So I think that we're doing quite well on that front. I know you and I have chatted about this, in the past, but we are currently executing one of the nation's only founder-owned, founder-led M&A platforms in the managed services and managed security services space. And because we are a purpose-driven, values-forward type of organization who cares about when we acquire another MSP or MSSP, we care about that founder, we care about their team, we care about the team's families, we care about their clients, and we care about the legacy that they've built in their business and how we carry that forward and how we help them amplify everything that they're doing and learn from them. Through the M&A process, we've now, purchased and integrated 8 different MSPs or MSSPs. And while we are a fairly evolved, organization at this point, I would say mature operationally, we don't look at as if there's nothing to learn from the other party. We think it's really important to assess how they're creating success for their people and their clients on a daily basis, and how we can learn from that and continue to evolve our organization. So number 2 there is kind of, our M&A practice. We're gaining really good traction, again, with purpose-led founders, right? Founders who care about how they show up and they care about the value they're delivering for their clients and their people. They see us as a very aligned partner to join with, instead of, they have hundreds of options out there that really are just financial plays and aren't really purpose-driven sort of organizations. So that's working well for us. Our organic growth is working quite well. The market is changing, and it has changed quite a bit over the last couple of years. We were consistently performing in an industry, and I know, Ira, you're intimately familiar with managed services space. That's how we know each other and have for a long time, and we've collaborated for now I think more than a decade. In fact, it's quite a bit more than a decade, probably 12 going on maybe 15 years at this point. That you and I have. I remember the first day we met at a Robin Robbins Technology Marketing Toolkit event, sitting at the same round table, and you were showing us the Nextiva platform on your phone, right? Way back in the day. But let's see. What I'm saying is, just over the last couple of years, branding, marketing, and creating, real world leads that turn into, sales qualified opportunities or sales qualified leads, is different than it's ever been before. And it's evolving, very quickly. We a few years back, and granted, with lower annual revenue, it's easier to, to grow at a quicker pace than when you get a little bit bigger as an organization. But right now in the managed services space, nationwide, the industry grows at 10 to 12% per year, right? An average managed service provider will have 10 to 12% per year growth. A couple of years ago, we were growing in more like 45%. Today, we're growing more like 25%, in organic growth per year. But that's still, we feel really good about that, because where we're at on the top line, again, it's a larger, more mature organization that is harder to grow at 45% per year. And then when we add in, our M&A practice, we're actually growing at around 95% per year, almost doubling, revenue and the need of how we deliver, our services to our clients and how we show up for our people. No, we don't double headcount, every year, but we grow pretty significantly in headcount every year, right?
Yeah.
And so we feel really good about that 25% clip, especially in an evolving market where, the things that you did 3 years ago or 4 years ago that were very predictable and created, net new opportunity, net new logo opportunity. Today, it's all morphing and changing. And so we're constantly A/B testing, what's working, what's not working, right? And we're constantly, it's a big science experiment, right? Like
Yes.
we experiment with different strategies, different types of campaigns, different messaging, and, the things that truly bring in aligned clients that see the value, in our organization and the services and products that we can provide them. Then, we double down on those efforts, and the things that are, not producing any opportunity. Of course, we're discarding those as, we figure out that, that the experiment isn't going anywhere.
Yeah, of course. Earl, where do you want Nexus to be in the next, let's say, 6 or 12 months?
Very good. So right now, Ira, we have client footprint in 28 states, employees in 5 or 6, physical footprint in 3 right now. In in 12 months, I would like for us to have physical footprint in 7 or 8 markets, employees probably in 10 to 12 markets. I would like for us to continue to evolve our capabilities and the product and service sets of the organization to meet the evolving market. And that means that we as an organization have to also begin to productize AI capabilities for our clients, right? As, often the technologists that they look to innovate within their organization, we need to be that sort of organization that not only develops our own AI capabilities in-house, and really begins to streamline and make our organization more efficient through it. We need to figure out how to productize that, those offerings for our clients and become very efficient at creating real value for our clients on that front. So that is, a very, very much a specific focus, particularly. And we sat down a week and a half ago in our fall, annual strategic planning for, 2026, and AI is on the forefront of, everything that we're working on for 2026, right?
Of course, of course. I mean, you have to be. I mean, otherwise you're going to be left behind. That's that's just
I
the
fully
bottom
agree.
line. Yeah. So, like, if you could fix one thing that you think is holding you back or just even slowing you down, what would it be?
Let's see. What's the one thing? I mean, I wish I could make the market more predictable, right? Just, buyer sentiment, buyer behavior, and the market in general. I mean, I think globally and, here as a country, economically over the past, 3 or 4 years, of course, 4 years ago, we were all thriving because there were all sorts of government, uh, incentives, put into the economy for COVID. But after that happening and the false inflation that created, I think that, none of us have been able to count on a really robust economy that we know is going to be that way for some time period to come. We see all this very lumpy sort of, things happening in the economy, which make the market weird and challenging. And so if I could change one thing for our benefit, I would like to have a more predictable economy and more predictable market right now.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you one last thing. Our audience is filled with founders and leaders who are building every day. And I always like to ask, like, what's one tip that's helped you grow your business? Something real that someone can put into practice like this week.
Yeah. For me, really, Ira, it comes down to a fundamental understanding that, particularly as a founder, and especially if you are in the lead chair, if you're the CEO or you're in a senior leadership chair, your own ability to be able to develop yourself and to affect, some level of self-realization is the bottleneck of the organization, right? Your own limiting beliefs, your lack of self-confidence, your toxic behaviors, right? Your your patterns, your egoic patterns, right? That you're not aware of and aren't consciously choosing to evolve how you show up and behave and how you lead people. If you aren't, what I'm saying is, if you're not conscious about the human being that you are and the leader that you are and how you intentionally show up, lead, and accomplish on a daily basis, then you're going to continue to bottleneck your organization. So commit to learning, commit to coaching, commit to mentorship, commit to ever evolving yourself, not just as a leader, not just in your business acumen and your people leadership capabilities, but as a human being, right? The more you evolve yourself as a human being, the more you evolve as a leader and the more success you'll create. That's my one, really kind of fundamental sort of, hack in business and in leadership that I think is super important for all founders to understand.
That is solid. And seriously, thanks for sharing that with everybody. That was great. So, all right, everyone, if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure you like the video and subscribe. We have more conversations with amazing leaders coming your way. Earl, again, dude, thanks for joining me today. You are awesome. If you're watching the podcast, now's your time to get out of here and actually go build something great. Stop thinking about it. Do it, like Earl has done.
Thanks, Ira. I appreciate the invitation.
That was absolutely great. Thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate your time.
See y'all.